What's up, tubies? I got another video response lined up. It's a rebuttal video to a user by the name of... Sorry, hold on, I forgot his name. It's something like Snake Tits or Fang Face. VenomFangX. That's a really edgy name for a good Christian boy to self-apply, isn't it? It sounds more like a ninja or an assassin or something to me. And then he puts that X at the end of it. It's just kind of... Anyway, I digress. I'm not here to talk about what the guy named himself. I'm here to talk about what he has to say. And before I do that, I'd like to make a suggestion. Now, his video is about 10 minutes long, and of course I'm not going to be able to play the whole thing because I'm limited to 10 minutes myself. So what I want you to do is go over there and check his video out first. I'll link it up in that general vicinity. Go check his video out first. Make sure I keep it in context. I've got it broken up into chunks. The guy's really long-winded, and he takes a long time to get to the meat of his argument. So I've broken up what I believe to be the meat of his argument, as meager as it may be. And you know, if you want to check me out, by all means, go watch his video first, and then come back and finish watching this one. Or just hang out and watch the show, whatever the fuck you want to do. Anyway, his video is called Proving Christianity, a Challenge to Skeptics. Now, this is amazing. What is this, like the 5th time this week that Christianity has been proven as an infallible truth on YouTube? It's amazing. So let's hear his intro.
Hey there. Today's video is going to basically be a case for Christianity. I'm going to present an argument to you that I believe is so irrefutable that you will not be able to call yourself a rational thinking person and not convert to Christianity.
Wow. Wow, that's a pretty heavy claim there, isn't it? What he's saying basically is that by the end of this video, I'm going to be so completely devastated that I'm going to have no choice but to drop to my knees and repent and just convert. Right? So I'm going to keep the camera rolling, and if that happens, I'm uploading it. I promise I'll upload it because that will be great YouTube. That will be absolutely amazing YouTube. So let's move on to the first argument.
But let's talk about the Bible and how it itself is proof of God. Now, let's just go with the hypothetical that God is real, and he wants us to worship him and know him. Just looking at the very texts that we use today are all around the world for the various gods we have, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, the Quran for Islam, the Bible for the Christians, and the Torah for the Jews. There are other lesser scriptures, but it seems to me if God is really concerned with human affairs, then he would want us all to have his word. The Bible is not only the most printed book in the history of mankind, it is also the one book that has been translated into the most languages. So just by the sheer numbers and the sheer amount of people that have the Bible in their hands, it seems God has been using that book uniquely more than any other book. That alone should point you in the direction, if there is a God, and that's an if, although I've proved it in other videos, but if there is a book that God is circulating for us to know his will for us, it seems the Bible is the one.
Right, okay. Does this sound familiar to anybody else? The Bible is proof of its own veracity. See, this is what they do. They make these videos with names like Proving Christianity or A Logical Argument for God. And then the first thing out of their mouth is, well, the best argument that we have for God is the Bible itself, which is the source of the idea of our Christian God. So it proves itself, you see? No, don't make me bring Conan back out here again. I don't want to have to do it, but he's a real asshole when he first wakes up, so I'm not gonna wake Conan up. But I think I've done enough to prove that that's not a logical argument at all. So let's dump that. And then what he does is he weaves another fallacy in there. He weaves another one in there. It's like a fallacy wizard or something. He weaves in the argumentum ad populum, or the appeal to the masses, right? Basically what he's saying is that because so many people believe something, because a vast majority of people believe something, a good chunk of people believe this, that must mean it's true. And of course, all you've got to do to see the holes in that logic is apply it to something outside of Christianity. Like, for example, at one point in time, pretty much everybody in the educated world believed that the earth was flat, and that if you sailed all the way to the horizon, you'd fall off the edge. That didn't turn out to be fucking so, now did it? Everybody at one time believed that the earth was the center of the universe, and the sun and the moon and the stars and all the heavenly bodies rotated around the earth. That one didn't turn out to be true either. So why couldn't we apply that same skepticism to Christianity? Well, the answer is we could and we should. He just chooses not to. See, he argues from inside the Christian fishbowl. And let me explain to you what that is. Basically, he exists in the Christian fishbowl, right? And everybody in that little fishbowl with him is another little Christian fish. And when they talk about things like this, they bounce ideas off of one another. They say, hey, look, here's a good argument for God. Oh, yeah, that sounds great to me. And then they swim off to their little fishy pastor, and the pastor backs them up with a little bit of scripture, and boom, they're ready to take this argument to the masses, right? Unfortunately, outside of the Christian fishbowl, where you argue from a Christian perspective, assuming that the Christian story is true. You start with that assumption, and then you argue from there. Outside of the Christian fishbowl, there's this whole other world of people that don't believe that. There are this whole other world of people that don't share that perspective, that don't make that assumption. So all you'd have to do is swim up to the top of your bowl, use your little flippers, swim to the top of the Christian fishbowl, and then when you get to the edge, reach up and maybe evolve some fingers. I know you don't believe that that's possible, but follow along with me here. You evolve some fingers, and you pull yourself out of the fishbowl, and you take a look around, and there's the world. But you don't. You continue to argue from your narrow Christian perspective, assuming that the Bible is ultimately true. You shoot yourself in the foot from the beginning. So let's move on. Next argument.
The greatest miracle and the greatest proof in the Bible's favor is actually Jesus Christ himself and the spreading of the gospel message. Yes, the Bible is reaching every nation in the world, and the amazing thing is, the prophecies given by the old prophets of the Torah of Israel, they all said that the Messiah to come would bring the entire world into the knowledge of the God of Israel. Jesus is no doubt the single vessel in which this has become a reality.
No doubt.
Now, there is a timeline given by the prophet.
I've got to stop here because, like I said, the guy is extremely long-winded. Basically, his argument is this. He's saying that you've got the Old Testament, right? You've got the messianic prophecies from the Old Testament. And then you've got the New Testament. And Jesus seems to fulfill most of those prophecies, right? In the Old Testament, it says that the Messiah will be born of a virgin in Bethlehem, the three wise men, and, frankincense and myrrh, and he's going to ride into Jerusalem at some point on a colt, and he'll be sacrificed and raised from the dead, etc. And then Jesus comes along in the New Testament, thousands of years later, written thousands of years after the Old Testament, and fulfills all those prophecies. So in his mind, the most logical explanation for that is obviously God, right? He just miracled us all into existence. He just poofed us all into existence. I mean, obviously that must be... How else could you explain Jesus fulfilling these prophecies that were written literally thousands of years before he was ever even born? Now, of course, us being outside of the fishbowl have an even simpler explanation than God's existence. Our explanation would be that the people that wrote the New Testament knew the Old Testament and wrote the Jesus character to fulfill those prophecies. Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? Seems a lot more simple than the idea that there's there's this God floating around in the sky somewhere, and sometimes he's benevolent and sometimes he's completely fucking antisocial, but he's omnipotent and he's omnipresent, and he miracled us all into existence with a flick of his wrist and a little I Dream of Jeannie blink, or these guys just wrote this character so that he would fit neatly into this Old Testament prophecy. I don't know which one to go with. So I'm going to go ahead and let him sum it up here for you, because he spends the rest of the video basically arguing that perspective. So here's his sum up.
This is not just a coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. This is simply the greatest hoax, or the greatest... What's the word I'm looking for? Basically, I don't even think there is a word for it. It's so astronomically impossible that I simply cannot believe that that there's any other explanation than the Bible's true.
Right. It's even more astronomically impossible than the existence of a super complex being that's capable of creating and destroying whole universes with a flick of his wrist and a popcorn fart. Come on, dude. Anyway, that's all I've got for you. Peace out until next time, tubies.